Taser will. We've done it before with our electrical weapons, and again by harnessing the potential of video and the cloud to bring you Axon and Evidence.com. And we'll continue to transform law enforcement with breakthrough technologies that protect life and protect truth. For us, it's a simple choice. Evolve or go extinct.
That was over 100 years ago, when Charles Darwin first developed the idea of survival of the fittest. Well, as it turns out, it doesn't really matter who's the strongest or the fastest or even the smartest. What matters is who can adapt to change. 60 million years ago, the Earth was struck by a comet. Now, back then, the biggest, strongest, fastest, meanest animals around were the dinosaurs. But they couldn't change when the Earth's climate changed rapidly, and they died, which, frankly, was a good thing because it allowed mammals to rise up and continue to adapt. Now, you might ask me why I'm talking about natural selection. And it's because it matters to every one of us today, not just as animals, but as organizations in a world that's changing fast. In the past decade, we've seen major Goliaths turn into dinosaurs. For example, Kodak, which is one of the shining examples of industry in the 1900s. And yet, the shift to digital technology put them out of business. We live in a world today where the pace of change isn't constant. It's accelerating at an exponential rate. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it turns out that technology, particularly computer and information technology, moves along an exponential curve. It doesn't advance in a linear way. It doubles every 18 months or so in speed and capability. Now, we tend to think in a linear fashion. If I walk across this stage, I take 30 steps, I go about 30 feet. But in an exponential world, where the size of the steps doubles each time, 1 foot, 2 feet, 4 feet, 8 feet, 16 feet. In 30 steps, I've walked around the world. Now, these curves have a way of sneaking up on us. We don't really see change coming, and then suddenly it explodes. For example, not long ago, the pinnacle of computer technology was the introduction of the Macintosh. Well, now, only 30 years later, I can buy an iPhone that's 1 million times more powerful. Now, this explosion of computational power comes as a result of this massive shift we call the internet, where the world is connected and technology is now moving at the speed of light. Let me give you some examples. You remember when making a long-distance phone call to Canada or Europe cost $5 a minute? Well, that's gone. That industry has moved online. How about going down to your neighborhood Tower Records store? We don't do that anymore. Tower Records went out of business within 3 years of the launch of iTunes. How about on a Friday night going over to the Blockbuster Video to rent a movie? That's gone. Classified ads have moved online. Travel agents don't exist anymore. Even major retail companies have gone out of business because now we can all buy whatever we want with a single click, and it's delivered the same day. The internet has changed industry after industry. It's turned old dinosaurs out of business and made room for new players that give us better and stronger capabilities than we've ever had before. Now, most of the major U.S. law enforcement agencies we spoke to told us that they have the ability to roll out new technology about once every 5 years. Now, compare that to Facebook, that rolls out new features to over 1 billion users every single day. How well are we keeping up in this new world? 90% of the police officers we spoke to told us that they have better technology as consumers than they do as police officers. And when was the last time you went into a computer store and purchased software on a disk, or burned photos or video onto a disk to send to grandma? We don't do that anymore. And yet, what do we do at work? As an industry, we are 10 years behind. We're still transporting our digital information, photos, video, evidence on disks, and then we're chauffeuring them around town in cars, something we would never consider doing as consumers. And yet at work, we accept it as the status quo. We can't accept that status quo anymore. We need to be technology leaders. We can't afford to be outpaced and outcycled by the very communities we've been chartered to protect. Now, when we think about businesses going online, we're not just talking about consumer companies. We're also talking about governmental agencies. For example, last summer, the CIA moved its latest data facility to Amazon. So for those of you who are concerned about security, we think if it's good enough for the CIA, it'll probably work for you too. So why should you connect? Well, it's not unreasonable to expect the same level of performance in our enterprises as we get as consumers with the enormous amounts of money we spend. And with the cloud, what we're essentially doing is hooking up to multi-billion-dollar facilities on a massive scale that give us the speed, cost-effectiveness, and redundancy that we've come to expect as consumers whenever we plug into the electric grid. As of today, there are 3 billion people and over 20 billion devices connected to the internet. Now, you might have heard this expression, the Internet of Things. Well, most experts believe that by the year 2020, there'll be over 1 trillion devices connected to the internet. The world is connecting, and it's moving online, and it's coming to public safety and law enforcement. Now, at Taser, we've looked at these trends, and we started thinking to ourselves, what if? What if we looked at a Taser weapon as not just some thing, like a gun or a baton, but as an intelligent device with a microprocessor? What could we do with the data if these devices became smart and connected? Well, for example, we could develop all sorts of diagnostics that give us information about how these devices are used. We could record usage patterns. We could even chart the amount of electricity used with every discharge, the kind of analytics that were once too expensive because every individual agency had to build and maintain those capabilities on site, could now be given away for free over the internet if we use the cloud to deliver those capabilities. Now, as we begin to think about this Internet of Things, we also have to consider this new idea of technology that's wearable. Wearable watches, Fitbit, Nike Plus shoes. So we started thinking to ourselves, what if we took a similar approach? For example, these large video cameras we keep in patrol cars. What if we had the officer wear it? What new capabilities would that bring? Well, we've seen the answer to that question, and it's pretty revolutionary. According to a recent scientific study conducted by Cambridge University with the Rialto Police Department in California, they found a 90% drop in citizen complaints and a 60% reduction in the use of force. The changes that technology can bring, the possibilities, are not limited to a single device. It's about a network of connected devices, things working together. Now, think about public safety and all the devices we use every day. In-car cameras, still cameras, fixed cameras, taser cameras, voice recorders, mobile phones, all these devices, all of this technology, and yet we're still using the technology of a disk and the on-premises server room to transport and manage that data. We build these facilities, we operate them on site, and every individual agency experiences this sense of being overwhelmed by technology because it's expensive to develop and maintain. Now, compare that to consumer products that just work. And they work at high speed and low cost because they're all connected. We're moving into a whole new age, and it's time for law enforcement to move there too. Rather than having to build and operate these systems locally, why not just do what every other industry in the world is doing and connect these devices over the internet? Well, at Taser, we had a vision. 6 years ago, we saw this coming to law enforcement, and we've developed the most robust enterprise software package in the world, Evidence.com. Over 3,000 agencies are connected today. Think how much that simplifies everything to have all these devices connected over the internet. Gives us powerful new capabilities, all with the security, chain of custody, and tracking we need to move information between police officer, defense attorney, and judge in a way that gets us out of the business of running disks around. I tell you, the internet is going to change every aspect of our lives, and it's time we begin to leverage that at work. Now, I started this presentation talking about the need to evolve and what can happen to enterprises that don't adapt to change. Well, if you're a private company, you can go out of business. But if you're a public safety agency, lives are on the line. People can be hurt or killed. This is a high-stakes life and death business, and we have to react more quickly to change. Our police officers in the street deserve the best capabilities we can give them. They deserve to have technology at work that's at least as good as what they can buy at the Apple Store as consumers. Now, as leaders, you're probably asking yourselves, where do we go from here? How can I make a difference? How will it have mattered that I was here? Well, public safety technology offers an extraordinary possibility of making enormous change. If your police officers don't have the tools they need to do their jobs, fix it. Now. Either with Taser or with someone else, because if you don't, you're just going to fall further behind. Don't become a dinosaur. Step up. Become a part of your agency's technology roadmap. Embrace the new technologies, wearables, the internet, all the technologies that are revolutionizing the world around us. Now, if you'd like to share some of these insights, we urge you to contact us at evolve@taser.com. We'll send you a copy of this presentation that you can share with your command staff and give you information about upcoming full-day technology summits. So, take your phones out and reach out. Now, for many of us, this device was the first thing we looked at when we woke up this morning, and it'll be the last thing we look at before we go to bed tonight. Technology has already permeated every aspect of our lives. It's something we can no longer ignore. We urge you to embrace it. Don't let your agency become a dinosaur. Now, if you have further questions or would like some assistance in setting up a technology roadmap for your agency, we have representatives right outside that are anxious to talk to you. We'd like to thank you very much for your service in public service and law enforcement. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the convention.